Okay, so I will be using notes on every page as we go through this exhibition. So we imagine that we are watching uh, an online exhibition of these great works of art by Gond artists. Gond is a tribe in Madhya Pradesh, and as tribal people have their own language, own tradition, and own economy, and they make an autonomous area. Therefore, we have to see this as a genre. As a genre means, like we see a genre, say a tragedy or a comedy or a detective fiction, or so Dalit art or Dalit literature or Dalit painting or Dalit film must be seen not as part of the uh, mainstream tradition of storytelling, but a separate development. Why should I call a separate development? Because they were historically separated people, and they were considered untouchables, and their housing, their life, their ways of living were all uh, distinguished as of their, not our. So, because of this historical reason, this art or the ideas or language or painting, etc., grew uh, independently in an autonomous manner. So that yes, there have been several uh, attempts to appropriate them. For example, after independence, when Constitution uh, implemented uh, new ways of political thinking and participation. So, under political compulsions, etc., mainstream people try to integrate them or appropriate their uh, history or like that. But Dalit has come up as a term of resistance. And their art, their culture, their singing, their painting, their ways of expression, communication is a genre, is a separate area, and we must understand uh, the autonomy of that area of expression, area of communication, area of existence, area of suffering, area of revival, and of political resistance. So this is, a brief idea. And so I say that the title we see in the tradition of the Ramayana. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that it is Ramayan, but I'm saying that there are epics in India. Similarly, this is a kind of epic or a graphic novel uh, which is prepared in the epic tradition. Okay, so now if you see that the Gond art comes from the tribal culture, and as I told you that the tribes have their own autonomy and their culture, which means their language, their rituals, their painting, or their professions are not the way we see our painting and our profession. So we have to see what worldview they have. Okay, so that worldview, uh, uh, you know, language ultimately expresses the worldview. So whether language is symbolic, which is made of words like ours, or it may be icon based, iconic, that is where you have icons. For example, this cover page is icon. Icon means, for say, a Bhim Rao Ambedkar statue in different cities of the world, you find this kind of Bhim Rao. See the hand here and holding a book in the hand, and then the spectacle and this blue color, okay, dominating blue color. So blue is the Dalit color, okay, this blue. So there were two, colors, say morning, which is sunrise. Sunrise is bright and golden and saffron. So upper caste thought identified themselves with this sunrise color, and uh, and they would say, well, your color is the evening after sunset. So when there is darkness, and so blue color. So Dalits maintained this color for their identity, and that is why in most of the Dalit art, painting or visual representation, it is not the uh, color of the sunrise, but it is the color of the sunset. So they derive their color also as if they were untouchable or they were separated. But you see, all of us uh, on this planet, despite being discriminated and humiliated, we develop our own ways of resistance. And history tells us how discriminated people also survive, and they not only survive, but they do the greatest jobs on this planet. So here now you see, so the cover page you can identify, but now there is a difference in the icon of Ambedkar that we watch in daily life. So this is this art here is Gond art. So the Gond's worldview of Ambedkar will be like this. Okay, so these lines and these dots, okay, and these patterns on the hand, for example, I hope you can see them. All of these patterns, for example, say uh, say if you look at this hand, okay, so you see here some patterns. These are the patterns. So these patterns are found in tribal art, particularly Gond art here. Similarly, you see this hairstyle or these dots, okay, and this eye too, this eye, okay. So this eye, for example, Gond art will use this eye for fish and for other kinds of. So you see, how do we recognize art? Well, as maybe you know or don't know, but I am a professional painter, and I have painted more than 400 works for last 30 years, more than 30 years, 40 years. So I am uh, talking not as a teacher who is teaching this thing, but as a person who is deeply into graphic art and fine art. Okay. So that's why you see, I'm just telling you the nuances, and they are very important, right? So on the cover page, you can see the use of, for example, and then what we see here, these are the names: Durga Bai Vyam, Subhas Vyam. Okay. And so art is done by these two persons. So I know both of them, okay, personally. So Durga and Subhas. Even I have a video. I will send you the video link. I made a film we invited them in a conference to talk about this text. Then stories by Sri Vidya Natarajan and S. Anand. Okay. So S. Anand runs Navyana publication. So Navyana publication that brought it out. Uh, so now you see Subhas and Durga Bai Vyam, then Sri Vidya Natarajan and S. Anand. These are the people okay, who have written, and they have the painted. So because this is a graphic novel, therefore the basic work is of the graphic. Okay, like in a film, uh, you see, like in a film, the picture is the medium, then voice and text. So the text has been added here because without text, we cannot think. So that is the content part. And then there are other things, curation and design. For example, you need a curator. You need a curator for any exhibition like this. And then chapter headings. Okay, so this is how the first page goes. So you can take a screenshot of this so that, at the same time, you are also preparing notes. Okay, because uh, because the notes that I'm putting here will be useful for understanding it. So so I have talked about that you consider Dalit graphic art as a genre, Dalit writing as a genre, and do treat Dalit literature not in the mainstream, so-called mainstream of Indian literature, but as a separate area in Indian popular culture. Okay, now this is basically a world-class book, and uh, people in England or in France or in Belgium, they all know about this book as we know in India. So it has gained world acclaim. Now, uh, you see, yes. So yeah, yes. So this is the second page, and now you see you have another page here that is uh, okay. Uh, this is here. Let me erase rest of the things. Now I'm erasing all of that. So I hope you have taken the screenshot. Please keep on taking screenshots of the notes. That would be useful. Now, this is about the events of Bhim Rao Ambedkar's life. Okay, as we all know that he was an untouchable, and untouchables of India were denied education. Not only untouchables, but the women also. Say the Dalit, that is are erstwhile untouchables. Then Shudra, that is if you have the Varna ashram. So Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya and Shudra. Okay, so Shudra is the lowest, but the fifth is the Ati Sudra. Ati Sudra is the untouchable. So Shudra uh, were like uh, those who were in as servants of body, skin, hair. You see, if you were cutting hair, then you were a servant called barber. If you were uh, uh, massaging the body, then you were a massager. And then if you were stitching clothes, then you were a tailor. And then uh, if you were serving society by growing vegetables, then you were a sabji wala or something like that. So you see, Sudras did not have the right to education, and they were all illiterate, and but they were skilled people, and but their skill was uh, you know graded uh, into their own uh, caste. So they were then turned into castes, and when new generation will come, that will automatically become. So you see, they were denied the very law of being different. In the This is the law of nature, being different. Two leaves are not the same; they are different. So but you see, the caste system denies the human the very basic right of being different. For example, I I can be different. I can learn different task. I can do. So all of us have different aptitudes. All of us have different intelligence, and then we can all have training. And so so you see, uh, the denial of this right of education, and forcing them to do the same kind of job for the generation, that actually created a huge problem of slavery in India, and that did not allow the Indian economy also to grow, because to grow for a better for growth and development, you need difference leads to much better development. If all of us can think differently, can produce differently, can participate differently, and can really be creators who make a difference, then our civilization, or our culture, our society, that will be richer. Because what is richness in of community or culture? That difference, the variety, the diversity. And caste system actually reduces that entire idea. This basic fundamental idea that emerged from nature, okay, is violated by caste system, and it does not encourage diversity. And that we see in our everyday experience. In Generally what we do, we reflect the real relations of our society. So we all come from the society where caste exists. So in our teaching, in our behavior, in our classroom behavior, in the participation, everywhere, we are guided by our real experiences of caste. And that is why we see less diversity coming in discussion or in output. And then lot of emphasis is on uniformity, become one, and something like that. So that entire idea is basically caste based idea. Caste based idea wants uniformity, whereas nature and human beings as leaves of this world, they all must be different. That is the idea from nature, not from caste. Nature is against caste, and caste actually destroys the nature, destroys the human development. Okay, so Ambedkar, and if you look at the 20th century history, and the whole 19th century, 17th century history of the world. So we see, for example, many revolutions, French Revolution, new thoughts coming up, Enlightenment in Europe, that is also happening. And then French Revolution, equality, liberty, and fraternity, and then uh, colonization, and then commercialization, and then imperialism. So you see, from 1500 onward till the 21st century, when the 20th century ends, we have seen a period of 500 to 600 years where there is a lot of upheaval, lot of turmoil, lot of transitions, and lot of changes. Slaveries are, framed, and then freedom movement starts, and then you see colonization is registered, and then nations emerge, new idea of organization, that is nation state, which did not exist earlier. We had the empires and all kinds of those things. So you see, from that whole movement of the humanity emerges uh, different political ideas and people's resistance and people's movement. So in that sense, we can see Ambedkar as a product of that historical period. So I would not reduce an Ambedkar into a person who was born like that or who is something like that. But let us see very clearly that British education in India after 1857 opened the door of schools to the untouchables, and that is why Jyotira Phule came and got, became educated. He merely did 10th standard, but he could write, read English and all, and then that led him to read Greek history and slavery and then French Revolution and all that. So then he could think about India and Indian caste system. So perhaps you study that article, caste laws in individual and society, and then you see Ambedkar's fellowship he got, and then he went to USA and studied, and he got one of the best teachers of the world, John Dewey. John Dewey, I think that we should keep in mind. Why? Because this name is very crucial. John John D. Dewey. Okay, so John Dewey was his teacher and mentor. And John Dewey is the person who actually created, who defined the idea of education in democracy in USA. So today, if you whatever you see USA's education system, it has been hugely influenced by John Dewey's ideas as an educational philosopher. Okay, so his book Democracy and Education is one of the most popular works of the world. All right, so this is very important. Now, if we look at this whole project that we are doing. So we have this entire background. And as I told you, you must take screenshots of all these, you see, notes. So in his life, what we see, or in not in his life, but in the life of the Dalits, uh, now you see, for example, here we have three chapters: water, shelter, and travel. So just look at it. Water is uh, what is water? Ultimately, it is source of life. Okay, source of life. Okay, and what is shelter? What is shelter? This is survival. Okay, this is survival. And what is travel? What is travel? Travel is mobility. Travel is mobility. So let us see the source of life, survival, and mobility, which means that you can be different. Travel decides you can be different. Whether travel of profession, or travel on land, or travel in time, or travel in, you see, travel therefore is also a philosophical term, a psychological term, uh, a term that tells about us. So if you are born as an untouchable, you cannot travel to education, or you cannot travel to, let us say, opening a tea shop in the village, because as soon as you open the tea shop, the other entire village will boycott you. They will destroy and they will remove the tea shop, throw it, because they'll say you are untouchable, you can't open the tea. So you see that travel is, in a way, is a broad way. So here we have, this very interesting visual. Okay, this painting here. So what do you see in this painting, and how does it actually reflect a Dalit genre of painting, or a tribal painting, or a Dalit art? You must have never have seen this kind of world view. Here you have a human, but the body of the human is more like. Can somebody tell me what does it look like? This painting? Yes, I mean, huh? Hello. Yes, please speak again. I mean, yeah. What kind of body does it look like? Yes. Someone can say, I want some participation now. Use your mic and just speak about this work. We have certain number of pages to do, so let us be little quick. And this is written in the memory of Jangad Singh Sham. Jangad was also, he was one of the best, Gond artists who could create, uh, who could take tribal art to express political meaning or new meaning, or for the modern audience. And unfortunately, in Japan, he died in mysterious circumstances, committed suicide or what. So that is why this book is dedicated to his memory. And what is written here? The sky that shelters us. The sky that shelters us. So he was a sky who now shelters the other Gond artists who teach this art and this message to the rest of the world, including India. So in a way, you see. So what we notice in this picture? Yeah, can someone talk about it? Yes. Aditi Srivastava, please buy this book. Okay, I see this. No, please buy this book. These are very poor artists. They need some money also, royalty, etc. So if we share all the e-copy with everyone, then entire Delhi University will be okay with that. But do you think it is ethical to do that? Hello, Aditi. Yes, that is nice idea. You can support the artists, and then you can hold this book and you can keep it with you for your children also. I mean, for the next generation, for, you see. So it's a good idea. But if anyone among you is, let us say, unable to buy, please let me know. I will help. Maybe not sending an e-copy, but I can manage some 5-10 copies, and you give me address and I can, if you are not able to buy. Okay. So that I can do. Right. So now I'm asking you this, that you please just talk about this. Somebody unmute and speak about this. This Akanksha, are you here? Aditi is here. Aditi, can you just talk about this visual? Yeah, because as we get into the main exhibition, this would be interesting to note, to get you into the skin of Dalit art. Yes. Who can unmute and talk? Deepika Bhati?
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Akanksha.
So, to me, as much as I can see, it looks like a land, and there are animals, and it's not a life cycle though, but it is someone's life, and it is like उनसे ही related है सर. बस plants हैं, animals हैं, and ये कोई animal body तो नहीं है, but like मतलब अगर है भी तो आई डोंट नो कि ऐसी कोई एनिमल बॉडी होती है या नहीं होती है,
हाँ.
बट इट but like it looks like land to me. पता नहीं क्यों.
Right, right. So you see, when we look at any art, there are two things that we see in the art. One is called element, the other is called principle. Okay. So one is called element, elements. Okay. And the others are called principles. Okay. So what are the elements of art? Say there is a thing called line. Line is, ideally we can begin it with dot. Dot, dot. When you put a dot on a surface, then you create an impression or something. Now dots can become line, and then lines can make a shape. Lines can make a shape. And what else? Okay, is it visible? Yeah. So I'm using this color. No. Which color will be okay here? Okay, black is fine. So you see dot, line, shape. Then there is a thing called light. You have to have light. Without light, you cannot create visual art, whether a photograph or cinematography, or you see. So because if you have no light, then it will be darkness. So light plays a very important role, you know. And then what else? Of course, texture. Texture is also important. Okay. Uh, so by and large, we can add 3, 4 more, but line, shape, light, texture. Okay. So if you look at the lines in this painting, and the principles are, principles, what are the principles? What does the word principle mean? If can somebody explain? What does the word principle mean? Nandini? Or someone else who joined my class, previous class? What does principle mean? What are the elements of tea and what is the principle of tea making? Yes? Can someone answer this question? What are the elements of tea and what is the principle of tea making? Yes, Tushar, Anitri. Anitri, can you talk about this? Yeah. Anitri, can you talk about this?
Sir, I didn't attend your last.
No, here I'm saying what are the elements of tea? What elements do we
Tea.
use? Tea, yes, tea. What elements do we use for tea?
Elements for tea. Okay. For tea, we use tea leaves or
Huh,
grounded tea, then hot
huh,
water,
huh.
then
Water,
sugar
yes.
is
Sugar,
sugar,
yes.
milk.
Milk,
I
yes.
think
These
so.
are
It depends on what kind of tea we are having at
right,
that moment.
right. True, true, true. That's right. So one thing is that these are the elements. Now, when we make it, we need a principle. Okay. Now we have put all these elements on the table. Now, as you said, it depends on what kind of tea. So now when we say it depends on what kind of tea, then we require a principle. So what is the principle of, if I say, well, I need a cup of sweet milk tea. I mean, or uh, typical this Indian tea. Okay. So what is the principle of making it? Somebody can tell me what is the principle of making it. Principles means how do we organize something or organize something. Okay. So how do we organize this act of tea making or organize? Okay. Or we may say compose it. How do we compose something? That is called principle. That is called principle. How do we compose something or how do we make something? So principle is something that we use to bring two things together to make a new thing, something that we want out of the elements. So can somebody tell me what is the principle of making tea? Whatever tea you want to
Sir,
make. Yes.
sir, we
Yeah.
know all those four ingredients will be mixed, and then we will not put it in the fridge. We will definitely put it in the on the fire, and then we will also use a patila rather than using a cooker for making it. So can we
Right.
say these are the things?
And we also have a hierarchical order. That is,
Yes, sir.
first we will so
Pani
we have number
डालेंगे.
1, number 2, number 3, all steps. So if somebody will put all of these things together one in one go and light the fire, then it will be there, but maybe people will say, well, this is not the tea, something like that. So you all understand what is the principle. Now you see, here we have element, dot, line, shape, light, and one element which is very crucial is color. Color means any pencil or anything that we'll use to, okay. And among elements, then there may be surface also. Surface, we can use surface or material, something like that. So you see, we have these elements. Okay. These elements, all right. So out of these elements, we need principle to compose them. Okay, we need principle to compose them so that we can get paintings. Okay, so out of these two, okay, out of these two, we will get a painting. We have to really create out of these two, we will get painting. Okay, so out of these two, now. Okay, so what are the principles that we use? Yeah. So for example, to put them together, okay, to put them together, uh, we can use, yeah. Can somebody tell me what are the principles that we can use to put elements dot? Say, if I ask you here, if you look at this painting, do you have dots here in this painting? Do you have dots here? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have dots. Do we have lines here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have shape?
Yes.
Yes.
What shape do, yeah, yes, Nandini. What shape do we have here? Please look at the shape. Does it look like a frog or like, have you seen something like this or like a kachua? Does it
Yes,
look
sir.
like a huh?
Tortoise.
Tortoise, yes. You see, look at these legs, the way it is, है ना? And the hands, small hands, very small hand. कछुए के जो हैंड होते हैं ना, आगे अंदर वो नीचे दबा के रखता है. क्या ये लगता है थोड़ा वैसा वैसा सा? ये देखो हाथ
Yes,
ऐसे
sir.
दे और पीछे पैर उसके थोड़े यूं दिखाई देते हैं और पैरों के टेक्सचर देखो वो कछुए जैसे ही हैं. और यहाँ पे now you see, this is a world view of the tribal art. Tribal art is not urban art, is not art that that sees the that creates self which reflects tribal art. The self of tribal art is the reflection of their self which they form in the tribal world. Tribal world is usually free from money, free from say bureaucracy, free from let us say competition, in the sense that who will earn more money or less money, free from uh, architecture that invades their forest life. So their life is kind of made of the material which is there in the forest. So the material in the forest, whether leaves or trees or animals or all kinds of things, so their languages are hugely influenced by the existence of the forest material. Okay, not the urban material. So this we must keep in mind, that what is a worldview? Worldview is the way we construct the world in our imagination. The worldview is the way in which we can construct our world in our imagination. And in our imagination, what do we construct? We construct from ourself. Now, what is our self? Our self is a reflection, internalization, internalization of the actual relations outside us in the world. Actual relations. For example, actual relations of the tribal life are based on the forest. So they actually uh, uh, meet all kinds of their traditions in their everyday life. So it is true that they use all kinds of sources found in the forest, but they have their ways to preserve the cycles. Okay, the cycle of so it's not that they one day they will kill all the animals for eating. No, they will preserve the cycle. Okay, so they know that seeds are very important, and they know that destruction of seeds, destruction of the cycle will bring uh, the curse of the ancestors or whatever. So we see here that the world, when I'm saying tribal worldview, I mean, now in this worldview, can you see other animals? And what are the shapes of these animals? Are they like we draw, or are they very different? Do you look the eyes of the elephant, eye of the giraffe, eye of this bull, eye of the bird, and eye of this man? You see, in tribal art, Segond art, this eye depiction of eye is very crucial. Okay, this depiction of eye. As I told you in the very beginning, okay, so this actually tells about a lot about, okay, now this fish, for example, okay, and then patterns. So if you look at this dot, line, shape, do we have light here? Can somebody tell me, do you have light here? So shape is like that. Now they have modernized it. They have put all these brushes in the hand. Okay. Yeah, light. Can you see light here? How do you see light in a painting? हाँ बताइए, कौन बोलेगा भाई? जल्दी बोलिए, आगे हमें बहुत आगे बढ़ना है. शुरू में थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा क्योंकि हमको इसमें ये देखना है कि मतलब जो नुआंसेस हैं वो थोड़े ध्यान में रहने चाहिए. हाँ, अनित्री और आकांक्षा, भावना बोलो. हाँ. Ankita is here. Ankita, please. हाँ. Unmute. Let us interact. Let us interact, Ankita. Despite the fact that there may be disturbance because of construction, don't worry about it. Devanshi? Huh. Vaishali is also here. Hello, Vaishali. Vaishali? हाँ. Vaishali or Vanshika? Hello, Vanshika. हाँ, अनम्यूट करो यार, बोलो, कोई ऐसे मत करा करो. ये बहुत बेकार मॉडल बना है. पता नहीं कैसे इंडिया में ये पूरा जो मॉडल बना है एजुकेशन का, कहाँ जाएगा, आई डोंट नो. मतलब अनम्यूट करके इतना तो बोलिए यस और समथिंग, मतलब रिप्लाई. हाँ वैशाली, जस्ट आई एम आस्किंग दिस क्वेश्चन. How do we recognize light in a painting?
Like the colors or the things that are on the, like the things that we can see like in a more more brighter, like we can perceive them very easily, are the lighter, like are the reflections of the light, and the things that are like hidden and shadowed, that's where the light is not falling, or the light is not implied.
Vaishali, interesting. You made got this concept. Light means if we can see the colors there, if we can see the objects there, then it means there is light. Because in absence of light, we can't see colors or objects. Number two, light will also say in modern urban way, we have three-dimensional light. Say for example, but here what we notice, there is no three-dimensionality. This picture, for example, is it three-dimensional or two-dimensional?
Two-dimensional.
Yes. So this, I think you should all note as a point that in this entire exhibition, we do not have three-dimensional pictures. We have two-dimensional picture. Why? Can somebody just speculate? Say we have 2D, 2D, not 3D, not 3D. Why? And then another thing is that because and also free floating space, free floating pictures. And free floating. What does that mean? Can someone talk about it? What, when we say free floating, what do we mean by that? Free floating is like I say clouds. Free floating like clouds. So for example, if you look at this visual, it is floating, is floating like a cloud in the space. So it means that it is not in a way urban way of seeing in a perspective. You do not have a perspective. Perspective means when you stand at one place and you view something, for example, if you stand at the top of the mountain, then you have a perspective seeing whatever is around. Okay, farms or buildings or village or whatever. But in Gond art, you will not see this kind of perspective. This will be free floating, the space. And so you see, this is a worldview. So urban worldview is architecture based, or a kind of design where there is a lot of human intervention. So 3D art, for example, so you can always adjust your light, which part of the body you want to light more. Say in film or in photography, we use that kind of technique. So if you want to light the entire body, then you put 3 lights. Okay, or if only the half uh, half face, so you put the light on this side, half face will have shadow and half will have no light. But in Gond art or in tribal art, because it is not urbanized or art that seeks a perspective, rather it is an art whose worldview is based on the autonomous forest life and their own culture, where they do not want to turn things into 3 dimensionality. So on the wall, for example, they draw their paintings, and so they create this kind of. Okay, I hope you got this point. This is, I think, crucial, a crucial aspect. So I told you that you take screenshots with all these notes. Okay, uh, that would be helpful to remember. Now, here in the chapters, or say this exhibition is divided into 3 parts. Okay, and water, shelter, and travel. And these 3 are crucial areas where there has been historical control. When I say it is a political graphic novel, if I say, well, this is a political graphic novel, then what do we mean? What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I say political graphic novel, when I say political graphic novel, what do we mean by that? I don't mean by that who gets how many seats in parliament. Political means political. What does political mean? This is very crucial for you to understand for rest of your academic understanding. Political means distribution of resources, nothing else. It means distribution distribution, okay, of resources, nothing else. That's it. Political simply means distribution of resources, nothing else. And so why is it a political graphic novel? Because it deals with the distribution of resources. And entire caste system is a system of distribution of resources. And that is based on discrimination and inequality and dehumanization. So say 10% people want to take the water, shelter, and travel as much as possible. So villages restricted Dalits and Shudras to get water from the well, because then well would be reserved only for the upper caste. And water is political. Water is political. Why is it political? Because it is a resource of life. So political does not mean uh, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates, but it means the ideas that they gave. And the idea that Plato gave, that Socrates gave, or Ambedkar gave are about the resources which may be physical or may be psychological. So resources can be of two kind. So when you talk of mobility, mobility is a psychological resource as well as physical. Shelter, shelter is the survival. I say yes, it's a political thing. If you have a house, if you have a job, then definitely you are politically powerful. Politically powerful doesn't mean that your father or mother should be an MP. Okay. So it simply means that you have got privileges. So political graphic novel distribution resources, I should also add here of and privileges. And privileges. So privileges may be psychological or privileges. Okay. So that may be psychological or that may be like that. So this is very, very important. All right. So this is what I had to say on for this page. Okay. And when you organize art or compose, so here I add so that you can put that also in this screenshot. So you can use, for example, you can make patterns. Okay, you can make patterns. What else can you use to create a create a principle? What principle can you use to put the things together?
Sir, balance.
Balance, yes. So balance, for example, rhythm, balance, all of that. Just think about dance, for example. Think about dance. Your body is element. Your body is element. So in dancing, what do you? Line, shape, light, texture. But if you have a balance, if you have rhythm, say if you can move your leg after every 10 second and create a pattern, then this will look like dance. Okay. Similarly, movement. Okay. So you see here we have, for example, things like movement. Okay. Movement. And somebody said rhythm. Rhythm. Then what else?
Sir,
Somebody
balance.
balance. Yes, Bhavna. Balance, balance. Yeah. Yeah. So these are the principles. So you can see here, for example, the movement. What do you see? Movement here means the movement in art is how I move my eyes in the art. How the viewer will move the eyes in the art. So okay. So when I look at this, I do not find say there may be another thing like emphasis, Mphasis, emphasis,
Sir,
or
unity. Sir,
unity. Yes, unity. Yeah. And emphasis, for example, Mphasis. Today I'm also turning you into painters, so you can whenever you have free time you can paint something and now use these elements and principles, and I tell you, you will be interestingly painting. Okay, because once this is also a kind of workshop in, and because we don't have time, otherwise I can use brushes and everything I show you so that you get it. So unity, emphasis, compo, and like that. So you use them. Okay. Now, interestingly, you do not see this picture as if this picture has a center. Does this picture have a center? Who will answer my question? Does this picture have a center?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where is the center? Center means there is a, center is always there of a surface. I'm saying center of the picture or center of attention in the picture, center of thought, center of attention. There is a center on the surface, that is fine. But I'm saying center, for example, in Ramayana, who is the center of attention? In
Sir,
Ramayana,
Ram and Sita.
Ram is Ram, yes. Like that, do we have a center here in this picture?
So
Center
that
of
tortoise painted guy is like the center.
no. No, this is, you see, tribal arts. So tribal arts don't have centers. Okay. They are decentered art. Why? Because for them, everything, you see that these margins are also center, these margins. So you see all of these characters here, so many characters here. And this tortoise is not a hero. Rather, you see the way, if you look at into the eyes of this character, do you see these eyes look like he wants to dominate all of them? Rather, he says, well, all of they are part of my life. Okay. This all fish and water and you see everything, even human and all, what not, you see. So you see this decentering is very, very important in Dalit art. Dalit art worldview cannot develop a center, because if it develops a center, then it creates a very problematic statement, because it is a marginalized art. So you see, I use this word here. So a decentralized, in a way, decentralized kind of. So free floating, decentralized, and you will not have a focus or an emphasis that this is here the meaning lies. Okay. So what I say, semiotics decentralized. Semiotics, see, visual semiotics, semiotics, visual semiotics decentralized. Semiotics is the study of signs. So it means, so that you can notice here. So several concepts that you need to understand Bhimayana are, I think I have discussed in the first 2 pages before we enter the novel. And we understand that the 3 chapters are based on, they are the chapters actually are political. Political means distribution of resources and privileges, and water is a political thing, shelter is a political thing, travel is a political thing. And then the 5th chapter is about the art of Bhimayana. And I am talking about the art of Bhimayana at the same time. So when you reach to this chapter, you will notice that I have talked about art of Bhimayana at the same time, while as a guided tour. So this is a guided tour of Bhimayana. Okay. So whatever I have explained here. Okay. And then in the art, there will also come a word digna, and that word is crucial. say Digna. Digna is, I will explain that. That is the frame. So Dalit art or tribal arts create a frame in their own manner, frame of patterns and all. And graphic novel and the industrial graphic novel have a different kind of frame. If you look at Lotpot, or if you look at other graphic novels of West of England or so, so you will see that more like strips. They are strips. They are strips, and strips. Maybe one strip divided into three cubes or rectangles. Each rectangle, like a picture, will say. So the story of a graphic novel will go like that. Okay, but using tribal art, this Gond art is not strip based but Digna based. Dignas are the divisions the tribals do in their pictures. Okay, so this is important. All right, and so Dignas are kind of divisions. All right, that tribal people make. Okay, how they divide their art. Okay, so say divisions. Okay, and say as in urban graphic novel, as an urban graphic novel, we have strips. Okay, so but here we have Digna, not. So you can take a screenshot. I'm going to the next page now. So I give you a few seconds maybe. So once you have the screenshots, then your notes are there for this text at the same time, because this text is there, and that helps. All right. Any questions here? So we are ready now for the exhibition, and our preparation is there. We have been okay. Here we have one question: how water is political? I'm not able to understand. Yes. Yes. Vaishali, should I explain it, or maybe I explained in the latter part?
Sir, you can explain it in the latter part when we come to that.
No, not latter part. I mean, while I was talking in the latter part of my talk, I already explained that. Did it work, or still you think no, it needs to be explained?
Sir, if you could explain.
Okay, I explained that. Right. So you see, political is what gives us power. Do you agree up to here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what gives us power is something that will give us energy. Now, where do we derive our energy from? On which people will do their political things. Say, why do we have the Constitution of India? Constitution of India is political or not?
Yes, it is political.
And is it about also under it, do we have education? Do we have water? Do we have food industry? Do we have land under the Constitution of India?
So,
For example, the canals in our country, the dams in our country, are they product of the political will of our country because of the constitution.
Okay, sir, I got it. Yes, understood.
That is, it was Ambedkar who was once water minister, water, river, and all that. And all of these canals and dams were imagined and constructed during his period. Now, that is, one historical fact, but it's not the answer to your question. The answer to your question is that water is really very political thing. And if you look a little bit deeper, untouchability or caste system is a constitution that controls the distribution of water. Do you think so? Not today. Not today when we have taps, we have dams, and we have rivers, and the water reaches to us. But look at Delhi and water distribution. You will notice that the richest areas get the maximum water and the poorest areas get the least water. If you look at the statistics, 50% of water is consumed by so-called litanies Delhi, where you have the MPs and parliament and then that area. And then if you look at the statistics, water consumption in rich homes is much higher. Much higher. Say, where in the poor areas where water supply is regulated by minutes, 30 minute, 20 minute, that the water will be supplied for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, for 40 minutes. In rich areas, water is 24-hour available. Do you think this is a political decision? Yes, Vaishali?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let us, be very clear now that food, water, clothes, education, all of these are political. Why? Food is political. Why? Because its distribution is political. So whatever is distributed, then the distributor has the politics of distribution. Okay. And even I tell you that small things like marks, grades, evaluation, they are also political. Do you agree?
Yes, sir. If we go by that logic, marks are also political only.
Yes, they are political. Why are they political? Because now we can, if we make that transparent, very transparent, so that political will be more democratic. So political may be democratic, it may be fascist, it may be dictatorial, it may be Stalinist, it may be oppressive, it may be casteist, it may be sexist. So political then further may be understood whether it is democratic, in democratic, you have to make it transparent. So an evaluation system which is very transparent will be more democratic. But an evaluation which is highly centralized in the hand of the evaluator is a fascist way of evaluation. Okay, so I think you're getting my point.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is crucial, and that's what Ambedkar's role in education, in judiciary, in water, in all these areas. However, you see, some decades he was in India, and part of the parliament was. So when he conceived constitution, he conceived a democratic constitution where transparency is crucial. And that is why you see this country is together uh, because of Constitution of India, I tell you. If we have had a constitution that would have been biased and would not have been transparent and would not have the democratic values that Ambedkar learned from John Dewey. Okay. Now, if you look at America's uh, election, look at how Trump is trying to, again say he has lost. So in a democratic country, he has lost. Okay. So, but he has not accepted the defeat. Okay. Why? Because he still thinks that, can he be defeated? Now, in a democratic in a democratic education, in a democratic family, in a democratic science, in a democratic market, in a democratic setup, defeat and success are not important. Not important. It is the transparency which is more important. So if transparency exists, then the system exists. Okay, so I think we are there and ready for with our background of this epic, and we move forward now uh, to the. Please take the screenshot of this if you have not, because now this is ready for. Most of the points that I wanted to discuss are here. Okay, and we move to the next. So I'm now erasing whatever I've written here. Uh, yes. Yeah. So this is the forward. Okay. So we enter, but before that, this is a crucial thing, and we have John Dewey with us. Yeah, just a minute. I'm coming back. किससे आया वो? बस से, ट्रेन से? वो है ना ट्रेन, काम खत्म करो। Yes. So what we have uh, is a very important person here, John Dewey. No, John Berger. And 20th century owes him the research he did on seeing, okay, John Dewey, and his most famous work he did is Ways of Seeing. I would admit that I was uh, immensely influenced by his work, Ways of Seeing, long ago. And so, and BBC, he made documentaries also, and one can check further. And I shared a link on him in the WhatsApp group, which is a profile of John Berger. So John Berger accepted to write the preface or foreword of this novel. Okay, so he has used the word foreword, not the preface, because preface is generally written by the writers themselves, and a foreword is something, you know, which is forwarding this work. So I want to try to say something about the way this extraordinary book. So he says the way this extraordinary book. So he is the man who talked about the ways of seeing. Okay, and he calls it the extraordinary book, tells its story. Now, during 19th and 20th century, now this is very important what he's writing. During 19th and 20th century, okay, so he's giving the reference that I have already talked about, was confronted and visualized. So visualized is therefore a very important word for human imagination, visualization as a stage. So during 19th and 20th century, history was confronted and visualized as a stage. Now he gives that metaphor that history was visualized as a stage. Okay, as a stage. So it's a theater metaphor here. And metaphor from theater. Okay, and this is important. So this is a metaphor from theater. Okay, so visualized and as a stage, a stage on which women and men struggle to choose and achieve their destiny. Now, this is very important. So this history as a stage, history as a stage, and a stage on which men and women struggled, and destiny and life in which that there was more justice. So this was the purpose. See, the struggle, their struggle were inspired and accompanied in the words of visionaries, political thinkers and active politicians, some of them wielding power, others subversive. So this is a difference, being wielding power and being subversive. So these two terms are important. Those of you understand power, this is one, but power and subversion are two different things, okay, that you must understand, power and subversion. So subversive is if somebody is misusing power, then somebody can subvert it. subvert it. Okay, like science fiction is a subversive way. Science fiction is a subversive way. It subverts the power. Generally, it subverts the power, uh, which means that speculation, huge speculation and imagination. Okay, visualization. You see, these different, when we are using these terms like speculation, okay, or visualization, okay, or we are say imagination, okay, or yes, fantasizing, okay. uh, like you see, these are the terms: fantasizing, fantasy, uh, okay, something like this. And uh, okay, so children's fiction, for example. So children's fiction, sci-fi or s-fi, like that. So these are different ways that subvert, they help in subversion. Huh? So they, I mean, for example, a fantasy can subvert the power. Imagination can subvert the power. Huh? Subversive. Okay. And that's a popular fiction, popular literature, therefore. So you see, if you look at the such an historical stage with its proscenium arc. So proscenium arc is again a metaphor from the stage. Okay, so these are all theater metaphor. Was present in poems, written stories, political meeting, insurrections, songs shared today. So this, you see, entire thing is metaphor from theater about the uh, this. The imagined theater has been destroyed by so-called communication expert, the media politician without a future, and a global economic system which reduces the whole of history and every horizon of life to the pursuit of profit. On this side of the stage, there is a today shopping mall. Now he is giving a contrast. He is creating a very different kind of thing here. So here he is talking about the world as a how the world became a stage for all these actions. But later he says, well, it was destroyed. This was destroyed in the second part. Okay. And then he says, well, we have now replaced that stage of the 20th century world, 19th and 20th century, into shopping mall. Okay, so that's a critique. The book offers a prophetic answer. Now, he says, well, this book offers, yet in fact, history continues and struggle persists. And so we face the challenge of how tell stories about them cross the world order. The book offers a prophetic answer, and it is that replace the stage of history with body of community, a body that is long past, a present of many voices and vision of the future. Reading the book and following its story, we enter the body, its bloodstream, its organ, and its members. So you see, he's using the word body is very crucial here. So what is this forward? First, he talks about 19th, 20th century history as a stage where a lot of visionary people, political people, uh, power yielding and subversive people, all of them dreamt of uh, justice and liberty. And for that, they fought on this stage. Later, what happened that the communication expert, media, politicians, and it is true also, Like if you look at our country and media today, so I think the media today has destroyed the uh, vision of India that was constructed by people like M.K. Gandhi or Ambedkar or Nehru and so many people who considered 20th century as a stage where they fought for struggle. They struggled and they achieved freedom and they built India. And 1945 onward till, let us say, 2000, entire 20th century. So that period of 55 to 60 years is a period when India uh, became educated. We all are parents and we all actually are product of that. But now uh, our media, if you look at the media today, is destroying everything that was created in last 60 years. And educational institutions, they are destroying every day. And if you look at uh, all other kinds of uh, powerful institutions that were created in last 60, 70 years, whether CBI or police or judiciary. So you see, he's telling something of the great significance. And what are we doing now? We are turning everything into shopping mall. Okay. Ultimately, we want to say that those who can come here, they can buy. If they have money, they can buy. Otherwise, they go. Okay. So till now, our education is if you don't have money, you can be educated. Some 10,000 rupee, 15,000. That is also most of these stupid colleges uh, have unnecessarily, put in their fee structure, all of that, which they don't use and collect the money and put in the FD. Ideally, if you charge 2,000 rupee, 3,000 rupee from per student, that's sufficient because university says only charge 30 rupee for fees. That's it. Okay. Now let us say there are some societies, etc., but that should not become 15,000, 20,000. In some colleges, 30,000. And what they have done, one college had put 50 crore rupee in the FD. Okay. So the inquiries are going on. And some colleges have put 30 crore in the FD. So they are earning interest on this money. Okay. So you see, we are slowly and slowly getting ourselves into the shopping mall. So this kind of education that we are doing, the most important thing that right now we are doing, for example, eh, I don't imagine this happening in after 5 or 10 years. It seems so, but history continues. No more proscenium arc, no more rectangular framing or unilinear time, no more profiled individuals. Instead, a conference of corporate experience across generation, full of pain and empathy, the nurtured by complicity and endurance that can actually outlive the market. Now he is saying, well, this art is very interesting in this, which does not have a proscenium arc, that type of perspective, and which does not have a rectangular framing or unilinear time. And so this time notion of time in is also very important in, and no more profited individuals, profiled individual. So there is decentralization, no profiling. So stories are being told like this all over the world. They are seldom printed and published. This book has now set an example. Seldom, who publishes such books? People will publish a lot of sensual thing, lot of detective fiction sells a lot, murders sell a lot. You see, if you make a story of murder, it can become the bestseller. But this book won't be a bestseller. Can't be. Okay, so let us thank everyone who contributed. So this is John Berger has made the statement from history to shopping mall to the relevance of such marginalized works with the different sense of line, different sense of time, different sense of visual, different sense of shape, but as a subversive art. Okay, And yes, so this is, you can take a screenshot of this so that you get all these notes with you. And here, this begins. Okay, so of course, this novel begins with the present time. Okay, one day in the recent past, a bus stop in Indian city. So this is an urban area, Indian city, and we can find people. I'm just erasing now this. Have you taken the screenshot? I'm giving you 30 seconds, 1 minute time if you want to take a screenshot of this with these notes. Yes, yes, Tushar, we will do that. So in a way, we have begun on a very interesting note. Uh, we have started on an interesting note, and these 3 pages that needed a lot of introduction, and for this guided tour. And I think in 2 more hours, whenever we have, we will be able to see the entire exhibition. And it will be interesting to watch this exhibition, I tell you. Okay. And maybe meanwhile, I'll do some other work on the exhibition. I can develop a guided tour, audio guided tour, which will be there. You could see that, because I have some experience of audio guided tour that I have used in different parts of the world. So I was just last night thinking of creating that. Let us see if I can do that. I'm taking the attendance now. Any questions here? Anything? Yes. If you want to say something. Yeah. Yes, I've taken it. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you,
bye,
sir.
bye,
Bye.
bye, 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 bye.